Okay. Day 2 of House-O-Rama. Let's start with 172. Delia Lukey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 172 partially restores a credit that existed as a carry-through from federal law until the Trump tax legislation, which eliminated the ability for union members to deduct the cost of their dues from taxes. This restores it partially by allowing a deduction on Maryland state income taxes of up to $300 of union dues. I would ask for a favorable report.
Questions of the sponsor? We have one witness, Don Edwards. Is she here?
Donna supports it.
Is that your expert testimony?
You forgot to add into your testimony today, as we had all day yesterday, that we were in the Senate, and the Senate was the best and was the best committee. That kind of helps with each bill.
That was, just to clarify, that was not what I said.
That's what I heard.
I did call this chairman the best current chairman of B&T, so.
really went out on a limb there, didn't you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. All right, in no particular order. Let's do 335.
Hi.
Hello.
Good afternoon. My name is Linda Foley, Delegate Linda Foley. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm presenting HB 335, which is Maryland Transportation Authority Easy Pass Disputes of Charges and Fees. Let me just say, what this bill does is it extends the time frame for Maryland Easy Pass account holders to dispute charges and fees from the current 120 days to 1 year to account for the year-long backlog in Easy Pass transactions and cascading Easy Pass issues. I know that this committee dealt with Easy Pass bills and passed them quite strongly, and on the behest of Senator McCray. This bill is a complement to those bills. It does not overlap these bills. It was passed unanimously by both the E&T Committee and the House Chamber. We did hear during the subcommittee from William Pines, the Executive Director of MDTA, who openly agreed that the new terms and conditions presented in the bill today are okay. It's a 1-year extension on the dispute timeline after the charge or fee is posted to a person's Easy Pass account, and a 1 year, and it has a 1 year and 1 month sunset. So we'll take a look at it again if the backlog subsides. I don't need to outline the Easy Pass problems for you, but you know there are all kinds of reasons why consumers would have problems with their Easy Pass bills that need to be resolved. I know you've gone over all of that, and we've all struggled with Easy Pass. So I know you're familiar with the audit that was done and all the problems that revealed, and I think MDTA has acknowledged these problems and recently offers an amnesty program, which you all know. And so the bottom line here is Easy Pass is supposed to be easy, and Maryland it's anything but lately. So I'm asking for a favorable report to change the 120-day period, which is in our opinion, in the opinion of the House, too short, and we think that 1 year is a reasonable compromise, and then we'll sunset the provision. I urge a favorable report. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Okay, so you've generated some questions. Senator King.
Does that happen here too?
I would just like to welcome Delegate Foley as a new delegate. We just had to give you a little bit of a hard time in our committee today.
Thank
but
you.
It's wonderful for you to be here.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
You have a panel, right?
Yeah, we have a couple of people here who would just like to
Say me
weigh
too.
in, if
Say
you don't
me
mind.
too, maybe?
Two. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Thank you. My name's Fran Schneiderman. I'm with Consumer Auto. We work for safety and fairness for Maryland drivers and car buyers. Yeah, I mean, basically me too. I think you're all well familiar with the Easy Pass problems. This just gives people a fairer opportunity to contest some of these charges. I will say quickly that, you know, Maryland, among other things, is one of the few states that actually still suspends vehicle registrations if you accumulate a certain amount of debt for toll fees. And so that's all the more reason that people need, you know, more opportunity to contest the fees. So we hope you'll give the bill a favorable report. Thank you.
Very good.
Caleb Josso here with the Job Opportunities Task Force. Again, just to echo the same mentality here. I will add that there is a current petition going on online that as of Monday, March 28th, does have 32,087 signatures requesting Governor Hogan to appoint a task force to investigate the issues further, and that all actions and fees be held with the investigation as it takes place. So, as it has been said, there have been many issues with Easy Pass, and this extra time for people to refute the charges would be very welcomed financial reprieve during these turbulent economic times. So we urge a favorable vote as well. Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else, any questions? Anyone else testify on this bill? Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
478.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, committee members. For the record, Delegate Julie Polakovich-Carr here to present House Bill 478. Great to see you 2 days in a row. 478 is a bill to tune up our state's enterprise zone tax credit program. And as the committee knows, these are both property and income tax credits that are meant to revitalize economically distressed communities. The Enterprise Zone program was enacted 40 years ago, and it's been 14 years since any legislative changes have been made to the program. DLS has evaluated this program repeatedly, including most recently in 2014 and last year, and those evaluations recommended major reforms to the program, including to improve efficacy and transparency. However, to date, none of DLS's recommendations have been enacted. Given those DLS evaluations and the fact that this is one of the largest and most expensive economic development programs in Maryland, I think the time is ripe for a few programmatic changes. To that end, last year, I was tasked by the Ways and Means Committee in leading an informal summer study on this program. The work group consisted of several members of the Ways and Means Committee, representatives from MACO, MML, and staff from the Department of Commerce. And over the course of the interim, we met 9 times and heard from several experts, both in-state and out-of-state, on this program to see how the program was working and to compare that to how enterprise zone programs are operating in other states. The end result was HB 478. As amended by the House, the bill before you makes several changes to the program. It updates the wage qualification for the job creation tax credits that are part of the program to reflect current minimum wage requirements in Maryland. It adds accountability measures, including a purpose statement and sunset date. It alters the allowable area for a proposed expansion of a zone, and most importantly, the bill cleans up the reporting requirements for the program and better clarifies the respective roles of Commerce, the Comptroller's Office, and SSTAT in terms of data tracking and program evaluation. This bill passed the House nearly unanimously, and with that, I ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a witness too? Or,
There is one, yes. I think she will be very brief.
okay, very good. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Callie Shumitz with the Maryland Center on Economic Policy, here in support of House Bill 478. I think definitely me too to everything Delegate Polakovich-Carr said. You know, we've been looking at these credits over a number of years because we think it's really important that if the state is investing these funds in private businesses, that we're making sure that the programs are working as intended. So we definitely support these changes to try and make this program more effective and to increase transparency and accountability so we can continue, so you all can continue monitoring it over time and make sure that it is continuing to help people get jobs, which is kind of the end goal of the program. So we would ask for a favorable report.
Very good. Senator Rosebeth.
Thank you. I haven't looked closely at the bill, so I appreciate the explanation. But I have had concern expressed to me about the reporting requirements. Could you tell us really what are the new reporting requirements and why are they important, or why are people against them? Or flesh that out a little
Certainly,
bit.
Senator. Thank you for the question. I'll say that most of the reporting requirements are actually on Commerce, the Comptroller's Office, and SSTAT to do the data collection and reporting. So I'm not sure if you've heard maybe from a local jurisdiction.
Yes.
For the locals, all they need to submit is a narrative about the projects that have happened in their jurisdiction in the last year, and if they think any large, potentially expensive projects are coming forward in the future. SSTAT asks for that information so that they can plan for budget purposes in the out years. Largely, that narrative statement is what the counties are already doing and their local economic development offices are already doing. So it's fairly minimal what the locals need to report.
Did anybody express that concern over in the House?
A few of the delegates from Prince George's County had raised that issue to me, but when we talked through kind of what was exactly in the bill at this point, they seemed satisfied, you know, with what's in the bill.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
No question. Before you call up the next panel, I don't want to interject something real quick.
Sure, please.
I'd like to introduce to Budget and Taxation, another one of my interns, Ms. Kayla Deceiver. Stand up, Kayla. She's a junior at College Park School of Public Policy, so just wanted to welcome her to the committee.
Always glad to have someone from there as a graduate of that school,
Huh?
in that program.
Three this year, bro.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. 1179. Yeah, bring everybody up. Delegate.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Delegate Steve Johnson, here to present House Bill 1179, State Lottery, Sales of Lottery Tickets, and Tickets from Instant Ticket Lottery Machines Commissions. The purpose of this bill is to increase the commission from 5.5% to 6% that certain licensed agents receive from specified lottery ticket sales. Maryland's profits from the sale of lottery in 2021 was $667.4 million, and the state's fourth largest source of revenue after income tax, sales tax, and corporate tax. Maryland Lottery and casinos contributed a record-breaking $1.391 billion to the state in 2021 in funding for vital state programs and services. The dollar has had an average inflation rate of 2.17% per year between 2005, when the Lottery Commission increased to 5.5%, and today, producing a cumulative price increase of 43.96%. Since then, minimum wage has increased, utilities have increased, the cost of buying or leasing the buildings have increased. In 2012, in a special session, the commission rate was increased to 6%. Effective with the opening of the Baltimore casino, which occurred in 2014. The economy took a downturn and the rate adapted in 2012 never took effect. The commission has remained at 5.5% since. We have to look after the folks that make money for the state of Maryland. The state has a surplus, inflation has increased, it is fair to ask for the 0.5% raise in commission that was promised several years ago. This passed unanimously in the House Committee, and on the floor, it was a vote of 130-1. With that being said, I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 1179. Thank you. Whoever wants to go first.
You can keep going, gentlemen.
Chairman Gazone and Vice Chair Rosapep. My name is Kurt McCauley with the WMDA. We represent service stations and convenience stores. This bill, it's a simple bill. We'd like to raise from 5.5 to 6, like I said, and I'll be short. We have 4,300 lottery agents. They've all been struggling, just like everybody else coming through, but expenses are up so much, it's hard to keep a full-time person on the terminal. And when you have someone on the terminal full-time, it increases sales dramatically at every location. And I think this 0.5% would actually benefit the state and also the small business person that's struggling right now to get back to where they were. So with that, I'll leave it like it is, and we'd appreciate a favorable vote.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Jack Malani, Legislative Chair, Maryland State Licensed Beverage. Just to put some things in perspective, the minimum wage in 2012 was $7.25 per hour. And I think it's $12.50 because I really don't know, because I don't have anybody that I could hire at minimum wage. You know, my place, they get health insurance and they get a simple IRA. So we try to take care of them, but I can tell you it's getting more difficult. I have someone devoted to one of my machines 84 hours a week. So if this were to pass, the average agent would pick up about $250 a month. that doesn't even count for the last increase if you're doing it correctly. So I think what we're asking is to remember there's 4,300 agents who, if you look at the per capita sales in Maryland, we do a very good job. The agency, in all due respect, is absolutely tremendous. The product mix and what they do to help promote sales is second to none in the country because we looked at it. So all we're saying is that we've been doing this work. We had the thing approved in 2012 when the casino opened in 2014, but unfortunately we lost it before we had a chance to get it. So we're thinking that is, with 4,300 agents, it would be a welcome shot in the arm. Things have been a little tough the last 2 years. We're hoping that you could see fit to put this in for us. Kurt has said, I'm a big believer in impulse sales. If you go into a store and they're not in the chair, you're less apt to ask for a big game or a scratch off if you have to find someone to come wait on you. So I think this gives people an opportunity to make sure that they can offset some of their labor and really dedicate someone to that chair. So we're asking for a favorable report, and we're available for any questions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Mike O'Halloran on behalf of the Mid-Atlantic Petroleum Distributors, who, like Kirk's group, also represent convenience stores. I know this committee appreciates brevity. I learned that under the tutelage of former B&T member, now Secretary Brinkley. So I will be brief. But let me just say, since this is the Budget Committee, I think you should think of this bill as an investment. As Jack pointed out, look, these agents are money makers for the state. So allowing them to be whole and to, follow through on the promise that was made during the gaming expansion, now these retail lottery agents can dedicate staff. And as Jack also pointed out, if they have a dedicated staffer handling these gaming issues, that means the more money is coming in for the state. So I think it's a win-win. And with that, I'll urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jim Spiropoulos. My family owns Town Center Market in Riverdale Park, which is in Prince George's County. I've been a Maryland lottery retailer for 34 years. My store has 3 lottery terminals, 2 of which must be operated by my employees, while the third is a self-service terminal. Depending on the time of day, I must devote 2 of my employees to the lottery, 1 for each terminal. The cost to hire and retain quality employees has skyrocketed. All of my employees earn above minimum wage. Combine this with increases to rent, utilities, insurance, and even security measures to required to operate safely, and it becomes quite difficult as I try to juggle enough staff to service my customers properly. In the past year, we experienced 2 separate incidents of instant ticket theft. One occurred in the middle of the day, and the other at 4 a.m. as my front door was smashed. The Maryland Lottery credited me for the instant tickets, but I was stuck with the expense for the repair of the door. The Maryland Lottery is very well run. John Martin and his staff do a great job ensuring all retailers are serviced properly while also making sure the player experience is the best it can be. We have enjoyed a great 34-year partnership with the Maryland Lottery. We are just asking for a bit of help as we retailers continue to experience soaring costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the group? Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
1186.
Good afternoon, Chair Guyzone and, Vice Chair Leftis, the members of the Senate Budget and Taxation. For the record, I am Delegate Teresa Riley from District 35B, here to introduce HB 1186, Property Tax Credit, Elderly Individuals, Veterans, and Surviving Spouses Alterations. During the interim, I had several groups of people, including county executives, the realtors, and veterans, asked that I look into this property tax credit in Maryland to see whether it could be extended beyond the 5 years. That original bill was passed in 2016. After looking into the issue, I found it was not that simple due to the constraints of the uniformity clause in the Maryland State Constitution. I sought an opinion from the Attorney General, which is in your folder. Basically, the AG said that the credit could be extended for an additional 5 years, but not more, to not violate the uniformity clause. Please take a look at the AG's letter dated November the 2nd, 2021, which is highlighted at the bottom of the letter. HB 1186 will allow local governing bodies to alter the number of years available for a tax credit from the current 5 years to 10 years. For seniors over 65, retired veterans, and/or surviving spouses. This bill allows local governments to opt to offer the credit to their residents and to come up with their own guidelines to implement the property tax credit and still remain compliant with the uniformity clause. This will enable Maryland to keep its retirees, veterans, and their family members in the state, and will also thank those who have given dedicated and committed service to our local communities. I respectfully request a favorable report on HB 1186, which passed out of the House unanimously. And I would be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. Questions, anyone? And we have, you have a, Senator McCray?
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Gazone. I just wanted to tell Delegate Tara Rowley that she commend her for bringing this bill to us, to the committee.
We all get a little punchy at the end of the session, don't we? It's good.
Thank you, Senator. We miss you.
Good afternoon. My name is Teresa Kuhns, another Teresa with an H this time, so some spelling issues as well, with the Maryland Realtors. Simply put, the passage of 1186 will help keep vulnerable populations housed in Maryland. In a January 2022 survey by American Strategies on Maryland housing market, 48% of Marylanders feel strain on their budget as a result of the amount they pay in housing, which is up 5% from 2020. 1 in 5 Maryland voters are now worried about missing a rent or mortgage payment in the next 3 months. Seniors face a challenge with 59% saying there is too little housing for older people who are looking to downsize or have special needs, including our disabled veterans, which is up 8% in the last 2 years. According to DCHD's Housing Needs Assessment and 10-year strategic plan, Maryland estimates that in 2030, more than half of all new households in Maryland will qualify as low income. HB 1186 helps expand those property tax credits. It will assist those on every income level with meeting their housing needs, and we also request a favorable report.
Very good. Any other questions? Delegate, we had a very similar bill. Have you had a chance to look at it? We gave the locals a little more authority to do whatever they wanted to do with this. Have you looked at it at all?
No, haven't heard about it, no.
Okay.
Sorry.
We've been trying to give the locals more authority without sort of specifying exactly how they set up some of these property tax credits.
Mr. Chair, that's exactly what this bill does. It gives the total authority to the locals to come. If you look in the letter that I uploaded, it does have the 8 counties, and they're all different. This bill allows the local communities or local governments to come up with their own program.
Okay, well, we'll match up the two.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. 1196.
Good afternoon, Chair Gazone, Vice
All right, so people ask me this all the time. They usually ask me if it's Gazone or Gazone. And I usually say yes. But it's neither, really, and I don't want anybody to start using this. You want to start using it. But my friends in Italy tell me it's Guzzone. So let's not go there, though. I answer to a lot of things. And the committee knows that. Gazzone is just perfect, or Gazzone, either way.
Okay, I'll just say, good afternoon, Chair.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And members of the Budget and Taxation Committee, it's a pleasure being here today. again, and especially being here with my Senator Corey McCray. For the record, I'm Delegate Chanel Branch, and I come to you today to ask for your support for House Bill 1196, Tax Sales Alternative Collection Programs. This legislation will assist homeowners in keeping their property by allowing payment plans for those who are behind in paying their property taxes. This bill will also authorize counties or municipal corporations to cancel or postpone a tax sale during a state of emergency. Homeowners across the state have been experiencing financial hardships as a result of the pandemic. Add to those who may have already been struggling to pay their property taxes or the loan mortgage, and it's most impossible for them, for some homeowners to salvage their property. I believe this legislation will provide assistance to homeowners in need, allowing some homeowners behind on property taxes to pay those taxes, and payment plans will provide opportunities that are available at this time. This assistance would help to reduce the number of vacant homes across the state. This bill would increase the chances of property taxes being paid, thus making it a win for all parties involved. This bill would especially provide some protections for populations who are easily preyed upon, such as elderly, disabled, and low-income homeowners. Today, I would just come to you to ask you for a favorable report for House Bill 1196. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councilwoman?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Odette Ramos. I am a councilwoman for Baltimore City's 14th District. It's great to be here with you again today. Asking for your favorable report as it came out of the House on House Bill 1196. As the delegate said, this is very important for all of us and all of our jurisdictions to be able to have flexibility with how we want to run our tax sales. This bill allows for jurisdictions to take people out of homeowners out of tax sale, and also make sure there are payment plans. I did try to introduce legislation in my first year to be able to do this in Baltimore City, and was told that the state has to authorize it. And we decided to make it a statewide bill because we've heard from other jurisdictions that having this kind of flexibility is extremely important. My constituents would love to have this opportunity to make sure that they have payment plans, and I know that the mayor has put together a tax sale work group because we are working on reforms of the predatory tax sale system that we have both in the city and statewide, and so I urge a favorable report because this will get us in the right direction. Thank you so much.
Very good. Questions? Yes.
Delegate Branch, I think you win the prize for being here the most this year, so.
Very good.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
1446.
Good afternoon. I'm a little rusty. I think this is the first in-person bill hearing that I've had in 2 years, so it's nice to see you all, not in a Zoom box. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair. For the record, Delegate Solomon from District 18 in Montgomery County, here to present on 1446, which is basically the advanced funding for the universities at Shady Grove 2.0. For their workforce development programs, for a whole range of new innovative things that they're going to be doing to help make sure that not only Montgomery County, but Prince George's and Frederick can really take advantage of the blossoming, burgeoning life science corridor that we have growing in our region. And I also just wanted to first off say thank you. Obviously Senator King, who's been such a champion with USG and a great partner to work with, and really to this whole committee. So the genesis of this bill was really to be a backstop. This was the $10 million that we were looking for, was one of Montgomery County's top priorities as a delegation. We really appreciate that the Senate, in addition to our House committee, fenced $10 million off for this in the budget. We know in today's supplemental there was $5 million. Obviously, again, we're looking for the full 10. We amended the bill coming out of the House to basically say whatever we could get in the final FY23 budget agreement, we wanted to make sure that the rest of that, so if we got 5, if we got 3, whatever it was, would be filled in the bill. So we would be more than open to any amendments the committee felt the need to make sure that we could just get to that full 10. And with that, I would urge a favorable report, and I will turn it over to our great executive director and one of your former colleagues, who's also a board member. Thank you.
Just recognize that we're going to do this, so.
Hello, everyone. Chair Guzon, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of HB 1446. Thank you in particular to Delegate Solomon, to Senator King for their steadfast support for USG, to provide more career-building opportunities for students, and to help greatly in building our regional workforce. I'm Ann Kademian, the Executive Director of the Universities at Shady Grove. We are a regional higher education center in the heart of Montgomery County in the University System of Maryland, where our 9 university partners offer 80 degree programs, undergraduate and graduate, on one campus with great results. USG was founded as a higher education solution to support the unique needs and expectations of the regional workforce and of non-traditional students, or what I say, the future student. 74% of all students in higher education today are non-traditional students. They come from diverse backgrounds. They are first in their families to go to college. They work while they're going to school. They have families or children to take care of. We must meet the needs of these students if we, as a country, intend to remain viable and successful. To serve these students, higher education must meet them where they are in life, delivering the skills that they will need for the workforce following graduation and that supports lifelong learning. This bill aims to meet the needs of these students head-on by investing in programs from our university partners that directly support the workforce needs of our region. We will grow and continue to bring in more programs in areas such as life sciences, nursing, teaching, behavioral health, and information technology, and we will work with Montgomery County Public Schools, Montgomery College, and our 9 university partners to build pathways that lead to meaningful jobs and careers. This is a return on investment well worth it. I hope you'll support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for the record, my name is P.J. Hogan. I've been on the Board of Advisors of University of Shady Grove for 22 years, a founding member. I'm not here as a paid lobbyist and cognizant of the chairman's remark a second ago. Thank you.
Very good. Questions? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm trying to get through all the ones where there are witnesses. 449.
Sorry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Delegate Stephanie Smith, and I'm here to present House Bill 449, which concerns property tax relief program designed especially for seniors. So this bill will allow Maryland renters who are at least age 70 and were previously eligible for tax credits applicable to renters to be able to apply for them retroactively up to 3 years. This would actually provide some much-needed relief to many seniors who often go overlooked because they're not homeowners, but they have the same desires to age in place and community and familiar surroundings as all seniors. There are 3 big reasons why I think this bill should be given your careful consideration and hopefully your support. And I know that other witnesses would give more details, so I will not steal their thunder. But first is that, as I mentioned, seniors do want to age in place. It is not only for emotional reasons, it also contributes to more positive health outcomes to have that type of stability. Secondly, older adults are more vulnerable to housing displacement. As many of you know, seniors are often with limited tolerance for a lot of stress on their finances. Many are on fixed incomes, and as we know, there are many that are living in households that have been described as ALICE households, asset limited, income restrained, but even employed. And for those seniors, they're seeing average housing costs of approximately $1,129 per month. So being able to retroactively apply for these credits that they are already eligible for would be a great benefit. So in closing, COVID-19 has impacted all households, and seniors that rent have not been excluded. So I do hope that with your careful consideration, House Bill 449, which will provide an opportunity for 3-year look back for applying for this renter tax credit, will be given a favorable report by your committee. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Isadora Stern, and I'm here with the Maryland Consumer Rights Coalition. MCRC is a statewide nonprofit that works to advance economic inclusion in our research and our advocacy. Thank you so much, Delegate Smith. That was an excellent introduction to the bill. We have a Securing Older Adult Resources program housed by our organization that we use to work with older adults to promote the homeowners and renters tax credit. And we work with these older adults to apply and receive these benefits. Like the delegate just said, the bill will work to allow these older adults who are 70 years and older receive these tax credits retroactively for 3 years, which will increase their economic security. A lot of the older adults we work with are on fixed income, and some of them are permanently disabled. We do not see a drastic change or variance in their income, and many of them can't move. So being able to apply these credits retroactively will actually be an easy step, and one that we already see with the homeowners tax credit. So this will simply bring in line the renter's tax credit to the homeowner's tax credit. Again, our older adults sometimes are faced with such severe financial instability that they are choosing between paying for their medication or their housing. So this tax credit and making it retroactive will just expand the number of credits that they're able to receive and stay in their communities, where oftentimes they are a beacon of stability to their communities and their neighbors. So thank you for your time, and I urge a favorable report.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
406, this is both Delegate Resnick and Senator Castley? Oh, I see. I got you. Okay. Now it makes more sense.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Budget and Tax Committee. It's a pleasure to be before you once again. I think it's been a nice 2 years since I've sat in this chair, so it's great to see everyone. House Bill 406 deals with an issue that has been ongoing for quite some time. It's the issue of what we do with kids in foster care that we don't have placements for. What we have seen over the last few years and more is that departments will regularly leave kids in hospitals, emergency rooms, and other hospital facilities because they don't have a placement for them, and that's where they stay. They are not able to go to a foster home. They're not able to go to a residential treatment center. They're not able to go to a group home, whatever it may be, because there's just no placement for them. And so they stay and wallow in hospitals for weeks, months, and in one particular case last year at Shepherd Pratt, a year. A young lady was living at Shepherd Pratt for a year. They have no education, no treatment, no socialization. They simply sit. So we have tried to deal with this situation on a number of different ways, and we have come down to being forced to file legislation because the departments have failed to act over the last 4 years to do anything to alleviate the situation. So we have HB 406 before you. It has been heavily amended from its original filing. As the bill sits now, it does several things. First, it requires the departments, whichever department has custody of the child, whether it's MDH or DHS, to open an appropriate number of beds for these kids. And there are penalties in the bill for what happens if they do not. The second thing it does is it requires the department, again, whichever has custody, to pay the hospitals for the stay. So this has been an insidious situation that we've been dealing with. When a child is first admitted to a hospital for reasonably medical purposes, the hospital then bills Medicaid and they're paid. But once the medical necessity ends and the departments don't pick the kid up, the hospitals are then denied payment by Medicaid because the stay is no longer medically necessary. So the hospitals have been eating the cost, and the departments have had no financial incentive whatsoever to fix the situation. And so this bill would require the departments to pay the hospitals a Medicaid rate. It's not out of Medicaid, it's out of the department's costs, for the stay, hopefully incentivizing them to open the appropriate number of beds that can deal with these children's underlying issues. The third thing it does is more long-term. It sets up a task force that will look into how long-term we fix the problem structurally in the state. We had enormous amount of work on this bill, enormous amount of meetings with stakeholders and groups, and from hospitals to social workers to various other groups. The departments and the administration did not come to testify in the House at all. They did not submit written testimony at all. And so they took absolutely no position whatsoever. So the bill as it sits now is the agreed-to product by all the stakeholders that were involved. I know there is some concern from the from the CHRC about administration of a fund that's in the bill. I will say this, we did not have the time to be able to deal with the situation. I understand their concern. But the reality is we took the funding mechanism for that fund out of the bill. So right now it's not a funded fund. So there's nothing to administer. If it really is a concern for them in the future, I'm more than happy to change it in future legislation. But as I expressed to them, there's no real work for them to do in this case. So I would rather just leave it the way it is so that we can get the legislation moving. So with that, that is the bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions and ask for a favorable report.
Senator Griffith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Subcommittee Chair. Just to make sure that I understand this in its current posture, because I was trying to pull up the amendments that you referenced, but don't have them merged into a bill. Can you just circle back and refresh? So what the bill in its current posture doesn't have a fund, but requires them to form a task force and come up with a plan to make sure that there are adequate beds for the placements when they become appropriate?
Correct, and it is a large task force. It's not just on the departments. It brings stakeholders in, it brings the legislature in. I want this to be an all-hands-on-deck approach to how we fix this problem long-term. Originally, we provided for a penalty for the departments if they fail to open the number of beds. That penalty would have then gone into the fund. We all agreed that it was probably better rather than having the penalty, to require the departments to simply pay the hospitals their fair cost for housing these kids. So right now, there is no penalty that then feeds into the fund. The fund's still in the bill. We probably should have removed it. I get it, but given time constraints.
Okay, and final question, and you may have said this, I was trying to look up the amendments and listen to your testimony.
Sure.
What is the scope of this issue? Like, how many beds are we talking here that they've been running?
It varies from year to year. It's not the vast majority of the kids that the departments have in their custody.
Okay.
I think from any given year, we're probably talking about 30 to 50 kids. We're talking about kids who are in the most dire positions. These are kids that may have had violent episodes. These are kids that may have had serious emotional abuse in their life. And so they may not be able to go into a regular group home with other kids. They may have to have some specialized treatment. They may have to have some one-on-one care. So the departments really have had a difficult time. And I will add this. They've had a difficult time opening the beds. 4 years ago, we passed legislation allowing for an expansion of their ability to issue licenses. We severely restricted it about 16 years ago, and 4 years ago, I sponsored legislation at the department's request to be able to loosen up the number of licenses available. The problem is the providers have not been responding to the RFPs because the rates have been so low it doesn't cover their costs. They're not able to function these facilities. I will say this, and I will give the administration and the department credit. We've been working with them to raise the rates this year. I think the budget, as we have passed it along with the supplementals, is going to go a long way to helping fix that particular problem. So it is my hope that if and when we pass this legislation, we won't have to have some of the more dire consequences in there because the departments will be able to open more beds. But they have to be motivated to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Casserly.
Hi, Delegate Resnick. I'm here on behalf of judicial proceedings, or second on the bill. So,
Yep, of course.
thank you. So I'm really focused on that, the JPR sort of piece of the bill. And I'm looking at page 3 of the bill, and it says that the court cannot commit a child for treatment, and then it has to, under certain circumstances, and it says based upon evidence provided, a licensed psychiatrist, or evidence that was provided in the last 48 hours, keep it real simple. Why do we restrict this to the last 48 hours? What about the child who has, you know, where there's evidence of serious suicidal ideation and the like for months and months, but in the last 48 hours, they've been doing, for whatever reason, okay? Why do we limit to the 48 hours?
That came from a recommendation that from the stakeholders involved. I will separate out two issues here, and because there are two separate issues, because we are specifically dealing with hospitals, not with therapeutic treatment centers or other appropriate settings. When a child in foster care is admitted to a hospital, it is because of a physical issue. They have hurt someone and have hurt themselves. They have, if they have expressed suicidal ideation, they need to go to a psychiatric facility. By the way, we don't have enough of those in the state. We only have, I believe, 12 beds at Shepherd Pratt for juvenile psychiatric. The problem is not the checking into the hospital, and this is what that language is trying to avoid. It says you can't check someone into a hospital for an issue that would otherwise be dealt with in another setting. Federal law requires the least restrictive setting, and that has been incorporated into this bill for those purposes. But we're talking about checking a child into a hospital for a reason that they need to be checked into the hospital. But then once that reason has moved on, they have been treated for their physical ailments, they are no longer expressing suicidal ideation or, God forbid, homicidal ideation or whatever it may be. And the doctors there have determined there is no longer a need for them to be in this hospital for this reason. It's the departments that have not come to pick them up at that point. So we're trying to differentiate in the bill the difference between checking a child into a hospital, what are the reasons you can check a child into a hospital, but then what do we do once the medical necessity has passed?
But this piece is the checking in piece.
Yes.
That's what we're talking, right?
Right.
And first, look, I totally agree with the intent of the bill. We've got to get the facilities, and we hear this in JPR all the time, the lack of appropriate facilities. So I'm not disagreeing with you on that half of this bill at all. But this part bothers me because if we have evidence that was 3 days old, you know, this goes down to 2 days old. But if we have 3 days old that maybe is really serious, and now, but if we come up to 2 days old, suddenly we sort of have a hiatus. But if you look at the 3-day-old testimony,
Right.
you think, wow, this is really bad stuff. So it's sort of like looking at the child with rose-colored glasses and just pretending that things are okay. And might there be an incentive for the hospital, who's now footing the bill, to want to move people out and ignore the 3-day-old testimony? That's the part that bothers me.
So hopefully under this bill, the hospital won't be footing the bill. Hopefully we fix that problem with the bill. As far as the 48 hours, I'm not an expert, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor. I went on the recommendation that stakeholders had provided us.
Okay. And then a little bit further down, it says, in addition to the requirements of paragraph 1 of this section, the court may not commit a child for inpatient care if, and then it says, an administrative law judge has made a determination that the child does not require such treatment. So this puts us in a position where you may have a circuit court judge who's been involved, or orphans court judge, a juvenile court master who's been involved with this child for years, and now we're going to throw it before an administrative law judge for a simple hearing, and they're going to make findings based upon what they see, which is not a hearing that does not permit the department to be there, and that finding is going to be binding upon a circuit court or a juvenile court master who has knows far more about this child. Why would we do that?
We throw things to the administrative law judges on these kinds of determinations all the time. They have been, when it comes to these kinds of not the larger scope of the child's well-being, but for the singled out situations. The administrative law judges have been the place where these determinations have been made. That is actually a recommendation that came out of the Office of the Public Defender that represents these kids and regularly appears before ALJs on these kinds of admission issues.
Right, but if you have a child who's in the circuit court
Mm-hmm.
and he's been referred over the institution based upon a 3-week hearing of 5 hours a day for 15 days, and that judge knows that case intimately, and they refer them into the institution, but now we're going to say, no, but the piece of this, that judge's knowledge of the case, we're going to supplant that, and it's going to be secondary to an administrative law judge who just heard very briefly from only a people, not the department's involvement, just a little small piece of this. It just doesn't make sense, does it, that we would give the ALJ this sort of dominant.
I disagree. I don't think we're giving the ALJ a dominance. What we're talking about here are hospitals, not mental health facilities. We're not institutionalizing anyone. These are hospital admissions based on somatic issues that have arisen in the course of this child's treatment, therapy, residential stay, whatever it may be. So we need to make sure that if they are being put into a hospital for hospitalization reasons,
Right.
all right, they are there only they are going there for a somatic reason, and that they are being released when the doctor determines it's time to release.
And I don't have any problem with that. It's just that I have an ALJ who's still just a lawyer who was hired by the state of Maryland to do ALJ services, and they're going to hear a brief period of testimony at which the department was not present, and now we're going to say that their findings of fact in that short hearing is basically going to be a mandatory finding by a circuit court judge that's going to dominate over their findings and their determinations based upon 2 or 3 weeks of evidence from experts and a well-rounded. That's what
I
it
understand.
says. It does. It's a presumption, a irrebuttable presumption that the ALJ's findings require. They dominate. Doesn't matter what circuit judge.
So an ALJ is not just a lawyer. They are judges. They are our regulatory judges. They are appointed and sworn as judges. If you appear before an ALJ, you refer to them as judge. And they are specifically there to deal on regulatory matters, and that's what these are.
Okay. And then finally, we say that the findings of administrative law judge are admissible as evidence in any court. So they're just their findings, that is evidence. So these are unprecedented, aren't they? I mean, when we look at administrative law the annals of administrative law, I'm not aware of any other instance where the findings by an administrative law judge are conclusive, established as conclusive facts, or even taken as evidence in a circuit court proceeding.
Well, I can't speak to that specifically. I believe that it's considered evidence under this bill. It's not inconclusive. It's not undisputable. It is viewed as evidence. But again, these are recommendations that came from the folks that represent these kids on a regular basis at the Office of the Public Defender, and this is not an area where I practice specifically, so I took it on faith.
Well, I mean, it is a mandatory because it says that you cannot admit them if an administrative law judge has denied that. Even if a circuit court judge with 30 years' experience who knows this child for 3 years, even if they would disagree, the ultimate decision maker is the ALJ who heard it for a few minutes.
So the ALJ is the situs for a lot of these admission cases, and that's where we decided to leave it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thank you for bringing this piece of legislation. I know of your work because I've spent some time over in appropriations, and it's certainly needed. In my district, I represent three counties, and I have two hospitals, and I've also served on a hospital board. This has been an ongoing challenge, as you know, and unfortunately, we have to bring it to the legislative level to get some sort of resolution here. But I think it's, we cannot ignore the fact that we're leaving children in hospitals and hospital staff having to work around them, and they are totally cut off from the rest of the, where they need to be and where they need to be receiving services. Could you talk again specifically about the payment? So right now, who is paying the cost for this? It's the hospitals.
The hospital, well, I mean, they're not paying the cost, they're eating the cost.
They're eating the cost.
To be specific, nobody's paying them for the kids to stay there.
And the bill is, will specify who to pay, and where is the authority? So I guess one of the biggest challenges that we've had in the legislature is, where is the authority, or where is the leverage for us to get this done? So are we going back, or are we talking perspective?
So it's going to be perspective. This does not go backwards. Obviously, we won't be able to make up the cost to the hospitals. But as you all are aware, we have the all-payer system. A lot of these costs end up becoming uncompensated care and have been put into the uncompensated pool at the end of the year. So this is going to be perspective, and the hospitals under this scenario will be paid the equivalent of Medicaid rates by the departments for the time those kids stay there. And if it's a day, it's the day. If it's a week, it's a week. But if it's like the case at Shepherd Pratt where it's a year, that's a significant amount of money. If it's the case that's, I don't know if it's current as of right now, but as of nearly a few weeks ago, there was one at Johns Hopkins, a child at Johns Hopkins who had been there for 6 months. Child at Montgomery Suburban who had been there for since December, sitting there with no placement able to go. So I'm hoping, I haven't gotten an update as of right now whether or not those 3 particular kids have been sitting in those hospitals right now, but they were as of a few weeks ago. So hopefully this incentivizes the department to take that money and open the appropriate number, issue the appropriate licenses and open the appropriate facilities so that these kids can be cared for.
And lastly, Mr. Chairman, so the appropriate facilities or the amount of beds in the state, I know that that's always been a challenge. Are we looking at that, would this commission or committee determine, or would the department determine the location of the beds? Would they be?
It would be the department. They would issue the RFP. They would issue the terms of reference under that contract, and they would award the contract to whichever provider would, submitted the appropriate proposal. And so they would determine where it would be and the number of beds, what the facility looks like, the type of facility, whether it's a group home, a residential treatment facility, a one-on-one care. In some cases, it's the child may need to move back in with their family, but have somebody with them on a regular basis. So these kids are in difficult situations. They have very complex emotional and psychological needs. So there is no one-size-fits-all situation that would apply to all 30 or 50 kids that we're dealing with.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the legislation.
Okay, so we've got several witnesses on this bill. Just remind the committee that we have got to do a significant briefing on the supplemental, all 3 of the last supplementals. So just let's keep that in mind as we keep moving forward. This is Bill 9 of 24. Also, something to remind members of. If the witnesses want to come up. Just have a seat and introduce yourselves and start the roll.
Sure, I guess I'll get started. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee and the committees. For the record, my name is Erin Dorian, here on behalf of the Maryland Hospital Association. You have my written testimony, which includes data from several studies quantifying the scope of the problem, but I don't want to focus on the data today. I want to focus on these kids and give you a sense of who they are from the dedicated hospital staff who serve them every day. A 16-year-old boy is hospitalized for 90 days. He's been in foster care since he was 5 years old and needs a residential or a group home, but he's continually denied admission. A 7-year-old girl sat in an emergency department for 40-plus hours on her second emergency petition evaluation of the month. She's discharged to an outpatient service provider, but readmitted a few days later after another attempt to harm herself and others with a screwdriver. A 16-year-old boy who attempted to cut his own throat, waited in an emergency department for 90 hours waiting for an inpatient bed. These cases are not confined to one region of the state or one hospital. This is happening throughout Maryland. I want to leave you today with the words of a hospital social worker, so I'm going to read her direct quote. As a hospital, we are responsible to attend to the acute healthcare needs of the patients. We are not a long-term provider. We are not a school. We are not staffed, licensed, or credentialed to deliver the ongoing services that these children need on a daily basis. But the reality is, due to a lack of appropriate community-based care, these children get brought to hospitals and remain stuck for days, sometimes months, even up to a year. Let me paint a picture of what life is like for one of these kids stuck in our hospital. Many times, they have been involved in a traumatic situation and abandoned by their parents. Imagine being placed in a room that is 10 by 8 for 30 days, without access to your own clothes or anything from home that may comfort you. During this time, you are not allowed to feel fresh air, eat any junk food, spend time on your computer, use your cell phone, or play video games with your friends. To make things worse, you are not attending school and getting no long-term therapeutic interventions. You are so angry that you take your frustrations out on your care team. Sometimes there's a security guard placed outside your room to keep you from running away. You ask multiple times a day when you are leaving, where you are going, if you can call your caseworker, if you can call your mother. I understand that the local DSS offices generally do their best, but they simply do not have access to the resources these kids need. There's hope that we can do better." End quote. This problem requires all stakeholders to work together and develop new ways to care for our youth who are facing a different world from the one most of us grew up in. House Bill 406 lays the groundwork to develop these new approaches. For these reasons, we urge a favorable report on House Bill 406 as amended.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Amy Petkosik. I'm the Deputy Chief Counsel at Maryland Legal Aid. Maryland Legal Aid represents children in the foster care system across the state of Maryland, and I personally have represented and continue to represent children in care for the past 15 years. I can't lead with anything else beyond that I sat on a meeting earlier this morning with a child who's been in Shepherd Pratt Hospital, is ready for discharge, there's no bed, and we talked about how she can't have colored pencils, not because they would be any threat to her, but because that's the policy of the facility that she remains in for no need of her own. These children, we have a congregate care crisis currently in the state of Maryland. Children that are clients at Legal Aid are being placed at motels. But a motel is better than an overstay in a hospital that's not psychologically or psychiatrically needed. Because when a child lives in a motel or another group home, they can go to school. They can get an appropriate education. They can play soccer with their friends. They can have their own clothes and their own blankets. These children that we represent are calling us every day, begging, "Can you do something for me? Can you get me out of here? The doctor says I don't need to be here." I can't emphasize strongly enough that we support House Bill 406, that we ask that this task force move forward, and that we find solutions to this problem for these kids who are so often forgotten. And I do want to take the remainder of my time to address a question that was asked earlier. Our circuit court judges do know these cases best, absolutely. But they are not in disagreement with the administrative law judges in these cases, and even more broadly, not in disagreement with the department. Everybody wants these kids to be in an appropriate placement. The reality is they don't exist, and hospitals have a lot of beds. And so when there's nowhere to put a kid, we'll just leave them there because they have a lot of space. And it's not okay for the kid, but it's not a circuit versus administrative problem because there's no dichotomy between them in these cases. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Sanjeev Varghese with the Office of the Public Defender in the Mental Health Division. If I could piggyback off of the issue regarding the court and versus the ALJs, there is currently no concurrent jurisdiction over it between the committee or Senate court and the administrative law judge. The administrative law judge could release an individual, a child in this case, if they did not meet the criteria for an involuntary admission. Under Health General, there is no overlap. This is clarifying that there is no overlap between the Senate court and the administrative law judges. Additionally, the 48 hours preceding that testimony of a psychiatrist or a psychologist before the Senate court, those are mirroring the requirements of an involuntary admission. Not that the behavior or the clinical presentation has to be just something that occurred within that 48 hours. It's that the testifying psychiatrist or psychologist has examined that individual within 48 hours before the proceeding. That's the same thing that's currently in Health General. This is unifying it to that degree. This bill, 406, would allow the Public Defender's Office to have notice of these children when they are left at the hospital. From 2018 through 2022, there were approximately 100 children that experienced overstays at the hospital when they were discharged because they no longer met medical necessity to remain there, or they were released after a hearing before an ALJ. Those children stayed there, and we only received notice later. This bill would provide that notice. These children are afforded and entitled to due process rights, which are currently being abridged by not having that representation, by illegally warehousing them in hospital settings. We ask for a favorable response from the committee. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Regan Vaughn. I'm the Director of Advocacy for Catholic Charities, and also Catholic Charities is a member of Murphy. You have testimony from both organizations. There are long-standing capacity issues in this state. For the 13 years I've been testifying before this committee, we've been talking to you about these long-standing capacity issues. And in 2008, the state put a plan together under the previous administration. It was not implemented. In 2020, the state put together a hospital overstay plan that was last updated on the website in April of 2021. We've talked about the planning, we've talked about what we should do. This bill forces the issue so that those plans can be implemented. There are short-term strategies, there are long-term strategies in this bill, and it requires the whole system to come together. This isn't just a DHS issue or a Department of Health issue. This is the entire child-serving system, and we need to come together under this bill to implement these changes. There was a question earlier about how often this happens. I was headed to a children's behavioral health meeting on Halloween of 2017, stopped to get coffee, fell, broke my knee, and got an ambulance ride to a Baltimore County hospital, where I saw 2 children in the emergency room. I had a very chatty nurse, an EMT technician. One had been there for more than 3 weeks waiting for a placement, and the other had been there for 4 days waiting for a placement. Their daily exercise was a stroll around the nurse's station. And that is just me on a random Halloween, being in an emergency room, seeing 2 children who did not have a placement to go to, who did not belong in the emergency room, who frankly should have been trick-or-treating that night, if not in another setting. So it is happening, it is common in our hospitals, and this bill is a necessary step to get us moving so we can stop creating these plans that don't get implemented. I would urge a favorable result. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Scott Tiffin. I'm here on behalf of the National Association of Social Workers, the Maryland chapter. We are in strong support of the bill. In our legislative committee, we have a handful of folks who spent their entire career in child welfare, and this is probably one of the issues that concerns them the most. You know, they feel that some folks have a perception that if the caseworker has just worked a little bit harder, spent a little bit more time on the case, they'd be able to find a placement. But they assure me that these placements do just not exist, and that means putting kids in hotels instead of putting them in a hospital, leaving them in the hospital, which we've all heard is a terrible idea, having them sleep on the floor of DSS. There's just nowhere to put some of these children. And so we just feel that there needs to be an increased investment and increased accountability on the department to help us solve this issue. They did want me to flag one possible technical change that I just wanted to put before the committee. On page 7, it creates a coordinator between DHS and MDH, which we think is a spectacular idea. And that coordinator is one of their responsibilities is reporting about these kids who are being housed in hospitals to the Office of the Public Defender. It seems slightly redundant to the requirement on the local DSSs to make reports to OPD. And so if you guys believe that it's also redundant, and you think there's time to change it, the local DSS workers, the on-the-ground caseworkers would rather not have to do an extra report if it could be handled by the coordinator. So the folks who are the current caseworkers just wanted me to kind of flag that as a potential technical change if it was possible. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Senator Stallings, is there anyone else who's going to be testifying on this? Okay, Senator Stallings.
Thank you. I was just reading the Attorney General's unfavorable letter, and I don't know if the sponsor of the bill could answer maybe some of the questions that maybe he had or his concerns that he spoke of. You know, some of the questions were, I think the child would not get, I guess, all the support or all the care that it could possibly get going through the process that it's supposed to be going through. I think there was some concern. Did you answer some of those maybe by an amendment?
So we did, and I don't know if the AG has updated their letter or not. It sounds like they haven't. The original bill had us requiring the local DSS offices to pick the child up from the hospital as soon as medical necessity ended. And there was a lot of concern between the various stakeholders about what would be the appropriate setting if there is an appropriate bed available. So whether that be the hospital or a hotel room, or frankly, when we had this bill hearing in the House, I had heard the day before of a child sleeping on the floor of a DSS office in Dorchester County. And so what we decided to do at that point was to take that requirement out and add in the requirement that the departments actually pay the hospitals for the stay, under the assumption that it would actually be cheaper to open up the appropriate beds than to pay the hospitals Medicaid rates for a child that's staying there for months or weeks or et cetera. So I think we handled it. I haven't heard from the AG's office since the bill passed the House, which I forgot to mention, passed unanimously. So I think we're good.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Questions for this panel? Senator?
Just not a question, but I just want to say thank you for bringing this to us. It has been an issue for too long of a time, so let's hope we can get something done. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. $12.54. Thank you, Senator. Delegate Wilson here. Do you have a panel?
No.
Okay.
Just, good afternoon. Chairman Gazone, Vice Chair Rosapep, and esteemed members of the committee. My name is Joy Jones, and on behalf of Delegate C.T. Wilson, I will be presenting to you today HB 1254, Maryland State Board of Contracts, Appeals, Positions, Law Clerks. The Maryland State Board of Contracts Appeals is requesting to employ at least 3 law clerks who are graduates of certain law schools within the state, which will provide the board with at least 3 more positions than the number of positions authorized in fiscal year 2022. The MSBCA currently has 3 board members, which are judges, and 2 staff members. The agency has experienced backlogs in processing their cases and appeals. At the same time, the General Assembly has expanded the board's jurisdiction to include bid protests related to minority business enterprises and, more recently, appeals related to sports wagering license applications. This added support will consist of direct assistance to the judges with help with legal research, writing opinions, as well as providing a better balance of the workload put on the board. By granting this request and reducing that workload to the Board of Appeals, which will better help the MSBCA in handling the overload of MBE complaints, cases, and appeals in a more timely and efficient manner. Maryland is a very diverse state, and by authorizing the approval of HB 1254 will not only provide these judges with their need for help, as I've just stated, but it will also help to influence diversity and inclusion opportunities across the state. thank you for your time here today, and Delegate Wilson requests a favorable report on HB 1254.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the representative? Oh, did you?
No, I certainly don't want to put the Chair Wilson's Chief of Staff on the spot, Mr. Chairman. I
Okay,
just
very
followed
good.
the issue in my subcommittee and know
Yep.
that there is some need in this area.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have, I know we have a representative from the board there. Does anyone want to say anything?
Good afternoon, Chairman Gazone. Did I get it right?
Just come up to the.
Gazone.
Very dangerous.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gazone and Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee. My name is Beth Brinkley, for the record. I am the chairman of the Board of Contract Appeals. As some of you may know, we are inundated with cases right now. We have a huge jurisdiction, big workload, and we need help. So we would ask that you approve the bill. We are also asking that you amend the bill to add an additional 3 board members. In that way, we would be able to hold multiple hearings at the same time, 3 panels of 3 board members each, and we could knock out our caseload a lot faster. And that is one of our legislative mandates, is to work efficiently and expeditiously. And so with the workload that we have, an additional 3 board members would be very welcome. So we would ask that the bill be amended to provide us with an additional 3 board members as well as the 3 law clerks.
Senator Griffith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I know this was an issue in the Health and Human Services Subcommittee that we did hear about the need for you all to have additional board members in your processing time, and certainly thank Chair Wilson for putting in the bill with the law clerks. If you would reach out to Chair Wilson, because I'm very interested in making sure that we take care of this as we have more needs for disparity studies and appeals. We want to make sure that both the law clerks and the board have the ample tools they need to manage these appeals. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Uh, 94.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. I've been waiting an hour and a half to put in that joke. Come on. So thank you very much for hearing me. For the record, David Frazier-Dago, Maryland State Delegate, District 15. House Bill 94 this is the 3rd year that I've been working on this bill. It passed last year, but unfortunately it passed on sine die on the House side. So never quite made it over here. You have seen this. This is part of the Climate Solutions Now bill, but I'll go through it very quickly for you. As most of you know, 30% of greenhouse gas emissions come from the transportation sector. So what this bill does is says that as we pass policy, as we move policy forward to try to clean up our air and try to keep cleaning up our water and try to deal with public health concerns, that the state do the same thing. So it just asks the state fleet of vehicles, as the state purchases vehicles, of which we have about 3,700 vehicles currently, that we just start purchasing electric vehicles moving forward. That's all the bill does. I can talk in more detail about it, but I know the time is short and you've been here for a long time. So I will say I'm happy to answer any questions. There are a couple of amendments that you should have in your inbox to comport and put the bill in the same exact posture as the Climate Solutions Now version. And I would just ask that you adopt those amendments and pass the bill, as I'm not sure what will happen with Climate Solutions Now. Now and in the end, it's pretty simple. And that's it, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I know this is the first time you've heard the bill, so if there are any questions, I'm happy to get into it with you.
Thank you, Delegate. Any questions? All good.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
483.
Hello there, Senators. I will be brief. I want to, first of all, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the committee, for your time and your work. I am here, Delegate Julian Ivey, presenting House Bill 483, which is the Homeowners Property Tax Credit Identification of Eligible Homeowners Bill. This legislation ensures that owners of residential property who may be eligible but fail to claim this tax credit are notified by mail regarding how to apply for the Homeowners Property Tax Credit Program. This bill would not create an entirely new process, but instead direct SSTAT to include a new group in the mailing that they already are sending out. As this program is currently designed, the Comptroller and SSTAT share information to identify and notify individuals who are potentially eligible for the tax credit. However, the current process does not include homeowners who are not required or fail to file income taxes in the past 3 years. This bill would notify approximately 560,000 Marylanders of their eligibility for this tax credit. These homeowners qualify for assistance, but they're just not aware of it. Therefore, I'm asking for a favorable report on House Bill 483.
Thank you, Delegate. Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great one.
617.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, Delegate Marian Lisante, for the record. Very simple bill I have for you today, and I'm presenting this on behalf of the, I knew you started something, didn't you? On behalf of the Gold Star families of Maryland. For those of you who do not know, a Gold Star family is not a recognition that anybody wishes to have. It is when a service member is killed in the line of duty and they, for this country. Basically, what this bill does is adopts the U.S. Code definition of surviving spouse. It also is enabling legislation to allow local governments to extend the already existing disabled veterans tax for fallen spouses. There's no opposition to the bill. There's letters of support in the file. I'd like to thank the Military Coalition for their support, and I'd ask for a favorable report.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you.
723. $763.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Delegate Tony Bridges here presenting House Bill 763, which is actually a bill that you already heard because one of your members, Senator Jackson, already presented this bill, Senate Bill 231. So if you remember or can recall, this is a bill about the correction officers' retirement system and making sure that Department of Juvenile Services employees, certain members who essentially do the same thing as the correctional officers, also get the same retirement benefits. And so this bill actually passed unanimously out of the Senate, and I would hope that you would also give this a favorable report for this House bill. So,
very good.
More than happy to take any questions if you have any.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
767.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Budget and Tax Committee, to avoid any linguistic miscue on my part, I will simply say that Gia Blatterman of Gia's Restaurant in Little Italy sends her regards.
Very good.
We've both frequented that restaurant. House Bill 767 deals with emergency procurements, prompted by a public hearing that we had over the interim regarding the issues that arose regarding blue light and the Korean procurement. And during that hearing, I said to Mr. Hook, the director of the Office of Legislative Audits, asked him what he recommended. He said, limit the length of a contract, of an emergency procurement contract. Now, I should add that he does not take a position on this bill because his office does not, but that's the genesis of the bill was a question that I asked him. The bill as amended and now before you would limit a an emergency procurement contract to 12 months. It was 6 months in the bill is introduced. It's now limited to 12 months and can be extended, renewed after 12 months with the approval of the Board of Public Works. That is required. And finally, unless okayed by the Board of Public Works, any new contract must be entered into by other than the emergency procurement procedures. With these amendments, it is my understanding that the administration is okay with the bill, has no objection, and I would urge a favorable report.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you, Delegate. Good to see you.
Thank you.
1249.
Good afternoon, Chair Gazone and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Wendell Beitzel here to present House Bill number 1249. This is a fairly simple bill that was requested by the Ruth N. Lowe Library in Garrett County. It makes it so that the counties in the bottom quintile of household income can use the library capital project funding formula of neighboring counties. This would allow Garrett County to use a 90-10% split for state and local instead of its current 50-50 split, which is preventing progress on some necessary library capital projects in Garrett County. The bill's identical cross-file, Senate Bill 847, sponsored by committee member, none other than Senator George Edwards, passed this committee and the Senate chamber unanimously.
So you got a sunset on yours, right?
And there, I was going to say, there's a sunset amendment, so it asked that the committee would conform the House version to 1249 to the Senate version that has this sunset. And if you would consider that, I would really greatly appreciate your time and urge your favorable report.
Very good. Anyone? We got this.
Thank you.
Rest easy. All right, 1398.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, I'm Delegate Dalia Attar. In 2014, the General Assembly passed the Baltimore City Residential Retention Act. This provides a real property tax credit to Baltimore City residents that receive the homestead tax credit for the last 5 years and relocate to a newly purchased dwelling in Baltimore City. This bill took effect June 1st, 2014 and ends June 30th, 2014. House Bill 1398 simply terminates this sunset. I ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
You got a letter on this?
No questions?
Do you have a letter on this from the?
I believe it'll be voted on Friday. I'll leave that up to Senator McCray.
Very good. All right, excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks. 1444.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, Mr. Chair, good to see you.
Good to see you.
For the record, I'm Delegate Janelle Wilkins. I'm pleased to present HB 1444. This bill passed the House unanimously, and it extends an existing tax credit for donors of HBCU endowments. As you may know, we currently offer a tax credit for individuals and businesses who make donations to the endowments of HBCUs. What this bill does is it ensures that this does not sunset and that we extend it another 5 years. That's how the bill passed the House. And I just want to mention that we did pass and create this tax credit in 2018. It went into effect starting in 2019. And just in that time, of course, big factors like COVID have taken place. So we really want to make sure that our HBCUs are really able to benefit to the maximum for this tax credit. What the tax credit does is that it's currently for 25% of the donation, and the comptroller is able to award a total of $240,000. So it is not a huge investment. I urge your favorable report on this bill that's supported by our 4 HBCUs, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Questions? Okay, thank you. Oh, Two questions, all of a sudden. Senator Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Great to see you over here. And look, you said 4 HBCUs. You're not including the community college?
Correct. This is just for the HBCUs in Maryland. So it's only for Bowie State, Coppin State, Morgan State, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore.
Okay, so is there not an endowment for the Baltimore City Community College?
I would have to look into that. I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Griffith?
She answered my question. I was just going to say, Howard is so close, but that's okay. Go Maryland HBCUs.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you. All right, I've got a bunch of, the remainder of them are all delegation requests. Just start by saying whether we got the letter or not. 1477.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to be with you and members of Budget and Tax. Delegate Wyville, I hope you have the letter in the file. It should be. If not, I will check when I get back. What House Bill 1477 does, several years ago, we had some residents asking the Board of County Commissioners to allow their mobile homes to be taxed in the same manner as real property. Currently, they're taxed on a gross receipts basis. So we did that, and they didn't like the result. Turns out the assessments were a little higher than what they had anticipated. So the county worked out a deal with the residents where they basically have the rate. So they're taxing them today on a gross receipts basis. And what this bill does is simply remove the authority to tax everything on a real property basis and restores the ability to tax it on a gross receipts basis.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
522. 680.
Good afternoon, Chair G. Vice Chair Roosevelt, he's out, and then and members of this esteemed committee. I'll start off by saying I'm always happy to venture over from the House of Commons over to the House of Lords. So, yes. So thank you. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of HB 680 as Baltimore County property tax credit for supermarkets. For the record, I'm Delegate Ben Brooks, and I represent the 10th Legislative District in Baltimore County. HB 680 provides a property tax credit for supermarkets located in a desert retail incentive area. Now, the USDA defines a food desert as a low-income tract where a substantial number or substantial share of the residents does not have easy access to a supermarket or a large grocery store. You know, and according to a study, they said 64% of the counties of the zip codes in Baltimore County could classify in that area. Now, where Baltimore County acquire their foods, they can acquire that, but what a food desert designates is the fact that they don't have access to fresh or nutritious foods, you know. And oftentimes they have access to processed foods or foods that are prepackaged, and they are high in salt, sugar, saturated fat, and it leads to bad health consequences. So, and which the other problem would be obesity, high cholesterol, and of course, heart disease. So this bill would address that area. And here again, what it does, it allows or provides a property tax credit for that first year to stewards who are new or stewards who substantially renovate. Yeah, so for those and many other reasons, I request a favorable report, and I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Back to 522. Evidently, the House is sending a senator to do the job.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and distinguished members of the committee. I'm going to ignore that, I think, we're going home in 2 weeks, so I'm outnumbered at home. I'm here to introduce to you House Bill 522, which deals, this is a local bill, it establishes the actual cost of an auctioneer's fee for a tax sale in St. Mary's County. And that fee may be included as an expense in the sale of the property. This bill was brought to you to us by the St. Mary's County Treasurer's Office. For decades, we have used one auctioneer who accepted the legislatively set rate of $3 per sold property. However, during the pandemic, this auctioneer actually retired. There was an immediate need to hold the tax sales in a virtual format, and the new auctioneer agreed to hold this auction for 1 year for that set price of $3. The regular rate for that is now $10. And so what we are asking is that the county is able to pass on the fee to the buyer. I appreciate, I respectfully request a favorable report on the bill, and thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you. Questions? Very good. Thank you. 842 and 914, both Calvert County. You like these bills?
Yes, I do.
All right, let's roll.
We good?
We got a letter from the county?
No, actually, I was filling in just in case the delegate did not make it over, but we can definitely get the letter.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do it.
All right. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for the record, Senator Michael Jackson, District 27, on behalf of House Bill 842. House Bill 842 establishes a tourism development incentive fund in Calvert County and requires the revenue generated from the county's current 5% hotel rental tax to be distributed into the fund. These funds would go toward tourism costs, such as to certain municipalities, towards grants to certain businesses to offset local special events fees, and to marketing for the county's potential visitors. The remainder of the funds will be required to go toward the general fund of the county. The tourism section of Calvert County plays an integral part in the county's economy. Providing funds to marketing would help bring prosperity to the local economy. And with that, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, we'd ask for a favorable report.
Very good. Any questions? Okay, 914.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for the record, Senator Michael Jackson, on behalf of House Bill 914, the bill requires the Board of County Commissioners of Calvert County to award a contract for banking and investment services, retirement and pension system, management, health insurance, or information technology that requires payments of funds for more than one fiscal year as a multi-year contract for a period of up to 20 years, including the initial contract term to all options. House Bill 914 will simply alter the procedure for which contracts are approved. Currently, contracts of the aforementioned goods and services must be renewed annually. Bill 914 has no state or local fiscal effects or impacts, and the small business effect is minimal. With that, we'd ask for a favorable report.
Very good.
Thanks, sir.
Questions? Thank you. Delegate Charles? You're it.
I'm the last bill.
Yeah, man.
Oh, man, we're gonna keep this simple. You guys have heard this bill already from Senator Griffith, and you guys passed it already. But for the record, this is Delegate Nick Charles. I am here on behalf of House Bill 723.
Is there any difference between the bill we did?
There is some.
Do you like our bill?
I do, and I think the government is also happy as well. So everybody will.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
All right.
Yes.
I don't know if someone from the procurement office or DGS, the House did put amendments on their bill, and my bill's over there, so I'd like at least the committee to hear really quickly why we like the Senate version, so that when it comes back over, having been amended, we can know why we need to put it back.
Sure.
If we could do that just very quickly,
Sure.
very quickly.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Mike Hafley, Department of General Services. I think the difference is the House bill was amended to put back in some language that we wanted to strike regarding procurement authority for do it That's the basic difference between the two.
Okay. Very good. Questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes today's hearings. Actually, it concludes all of our hearings, I hope. I think that was it. I don't think we have any more hearings. No? Now I'm getting shaking heads, no? No more. No more. No mas. All right. We're gonna invite Mr. Romans up to do an analysis of supplemental budgets 3, 4, and 5. After that, we're gonna go back to a voting session.
Sure.
Good times. Okay, let's begin the hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You all should have a document on your desks that goes through these 3 supplemental budgets that have come in the last 4 business days.
Wow, what a crowd seems to be coming in. You brought out the troops, did you?
Stretch their legs. So if you turn to page 1 of the document, this is a rather remarkable amount of money that's come in through the 3 supplementals, $3.8 billion in total, $2.1 billion of that being general funds across the 3 supplementals. I would note for you the estimated reversions that came in with supplemental 5 of 10 million, which when we get a little later on, you'll see I think they needed to do to keep a fund balance of over 200 million. One of the things that being done to fund the general fund costs is to transfer money from the rainy day fund. So 1.1 billion is being transferred out of the rainy day fund to the general fund. So this leaves 2.4 billion in the rainy day fund, which is $69 million more than 10% in the rainy day fund. So just over 10%. Rebecca's going to talk about the next couple of charts.
We've got some fencing that goes into that, right?
Yes, sir.
Is that exact match?
It's an exact match, yes.
Very good.
Page 2 just gives you a little insight as to the 3 supplemental budgets, how they're funded in terms of ongoing and one-time spending. You can see that the majority, this is general fund specific, but the majority of funding is towards one-time spending, about 1.6 billion out of the 2.1 billion appropriated through the 3 supplemental budgets. The majority of that is for PAYGO and capital infrastructure funds, most notably the $800 million funded in supplemental budget number 4 for PAYGO. Priorities. On page 3, this chart gives you a snapshot of the fund balances after accounting for the House appropriations actions on the budget as well as supplemental budgets 1 through 5. You can see that in fiscal 2023, it's now projected to close with a fund balance of $233 million in cash and a $341 million structural balance. I would note that the rainy day fund balance of just above $2.3 billion does reflect the fencing items of the $69 million, which equates to everything that that the House had fenced that wasn't funded through the supplemental budget.
One thing I would add about the chart is so the general fund balance there shows at 233 million. And depending on what you do on conference, it's possible you're going to add some money to the budget, which could get us very close to 200 million, which is fine. But if you pass other tax bills beyond the 350 million and those, pass, you could bring the fund balance below 200 million, which was the goal of all session long. Just something to be aware of. All right, on page 4, we have the kind of one-page summary of the big items in the supplemental, and then behind that, we'll have some greater detail. The single biggest item is 800 million in general funds in the dedicated purpose fund for legislative capital priorities. And this is where you would move all those things from GO to PAYGO that you had previously fenced in the rainy day fund and so forth. But it generates 800 million of capacity for you in the GO program. So the next item is there's 370 million in supplemental 5 in the dedicated purpose fund for things you'd fenced money for, kind of operating purposes, and it does delineate what those are, and we can talk more about that in a moment. Then there's quite a bit of other pay-go that was the governor's priorities, $249 million of general funds, $154 million of federal funds. The big items in terms of general funds are the Comprehensive Cancer Center at the University of Maryland Medical System getting an additional $75 million, which brings the commitment to $100 million of state funds in fiscal '23. And then UMS's Capital Region Oncology Center gets an additional $27 million, which brings the total commitment in '23 to $67 million for that purpose. Supplemental 3, I think it was, had the 4% provider rate increases that you had fenced money for, about $110 million in general funds. The governor's added $100 million for cybersecurity. This is on top of more than $100 million that was in the budget already. In behavioral health, so there's been a lot of confusion about this item. So when the governor put the budget together for behavioral health, they were expecting recoupments of about $100 million in fiscal '23 from the overpayments to providers during the early part of the pandemic. And they decided that using special funds wasn't the best way to do that, so they've gotten rid of that and replaced it by assuming we'll still recover $100 million, and that money will go directly to the general fund. So the supplemental recognizes that as a general fund revenue, and then it replaces the spending of that money for just ongoing behavioral health services with $100 million in general funds. So all it is a fund swap, but it's confused a lot of people thinking it's something else. It's just a fund swap, still assuming the recoupment of the $100 million.
So they've got it, if I'm right, they're down to like $214 million.
Roughly, yes.
And so they're saying at the end of the day, they're gonna just, the $100 million of that, the state is going to.
They're assuming that we'll recover $100 million. I mean, I think they don't want to over-assume because they're using it to fund the budget.
So they're assuming they're not gonna recover the $114 million.
I'm not sure that they're assuming that. I think they're just saying we don't want to overestimate how much we'll get back in '23. I mean, they're also trying to recover money in the current fiscal year.
Go ahead, Senator.
Yeah, just curious, and you may not know this, but do you know if they're using, is that strictly state funds, or is that including what the federal reimbursement might also bring? Or are they just a placeholder?
They're expecting to recover $100 million of state funds from the providers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator McCray.
Thank you. Two questions. One of them is, ROCA is a program inside of Baltimore City, but there was funding for ROCA outside of Baltimore City. That's pretty broad. What does that mean?
So that was one of the things the House fenced money for, is for that purpose, and the governor has funded it in the supplemental. My understanding is that they want to expand operations into Baltimore County, but I don't know a lot of details.
Okay, I know where to dig at now. Operating grant to Thread.
That was another item that the House fenced $750,000 for, and the governor has funded in the supplemental.
Okay, got it. And from the House?
Yes.
Got it.
What was the title of what you had just asked? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Senator? Yeah.
I asked about ROCA.
Oh, yeah. That's not coming out of ROCA. Correct?
Sorry?
That's $750,000.
The $750,000 is for Thread, the Thread program.
Okay, we'll get to that in conference too, I think.
All right, continuing on page 4, the other large items, rental housing grants is an additional $50 million of pay-go for that. That's on top of $67 million or so in the capital budget and the $30 million that you are diverting to rental housing in legislation. So you get to about almost $150 million for rental housing. Victims of crime, the governor has put $35 million in the supplemental budget for the Victims of Crime program. That was even more than the Senate had fenced for that purpose. So then there's $35 million for mental health services for people in crisis to provide additional capacity to serve those individuals. There's $33 million for adult dental coverage, which is just, implementing the legislation that's moving along. And then $30 million in the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services for salaries. And we understand this to be two issues. One is apparently they're overspending their budget a little bit as they've had some success in filling positions. As well as there was a U.S. Department of Labor audit that found some issues where they weren't quite paying their employees the rate they should have been. So the $30 million is to cover those two purposes. Need-based financial aid gets $22 million that goes directly to the public four-year institutions. Just to give you a sense, this is a pretty big increase. For the University System of Maryland in fiscal '21, they spent $66 million on need-based financial aid out of their own budget. They're getting an additional $20 million out of this 22. So it's a pretty substantial expansion of need-based aid through the schools. Bonuses for child care providers, and then money for a revolving loan fund related to child care. I think both of these are linked to legislation. Stem cell research fund gets an additional $10.5 million, bringing the total funding in '23 to $20.5 million. Cancer research grants to the academic health centers, that's University of Maryland Medical and Johns Hopkins, goes up by $10 million, providing a total of $25 million to the academic health centers for cancer research. Neighborhood revitalization, a couple of $10 million grants to Prince George's County for specific programs. And then those are the big items. There's another $100 million of general funds kind of scattered across a lot of smaller items. Then there's quite a bit of federal stimulus money coming in, much of it for the school systems, just catching up to bringing all that money into the budget.
So is that money, was that directly going to the school? It wasn't going directly, they got their own pockets of money that was direct to them too, right?
Quite a bit of the money passes through the state budget, though. Most of this is just passing through more of the money for the local school systems.
Right. The only reason I mention this or point this out is we had a little discussion on the floor this morning about having money available for school systems. This is just another pot of money coming at them.
So that's the high-level summary. Tanya's going to hit on.
Question, Senator Eckert.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I wanted to piggyback on that because these three categories of funds for school systems, we just know that they're going to the State Board of Ed and then pass through, but we don't know what they are yet, right?
I think we could get you, if you want to know by county, I think we can determine that.
That would be helpful. Thank you very much, because the counties, this county school systems were expecting additional, but it's been hard to figure out where that is. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It would be great if we had a chart that showed both this money and the money that they got directly.
Yes.
County by county. I think that would be very helpful for the body to understand what's going on here.
Okay.
Yes, it would be.
Work on that.
Thank you. Senator Roosevelt.
Yeah, just a footnote to the question. You may not know the answer to this yet. Did the school systems, or are the school systems getting substantial stimulus money directly from the federal government, or does it all go through the state? Or do you know?
My recollection is that almost all of the money goes through the state, but it's like it has to then be passed on to the school
If we
system.
just nail that down as part of the chart, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the briefing. If you skip down almost to the bottom of page 4, the opioid settlement. So where does those funds rest? We know that families don't receive dollars directly due to the settlement, but trainings and behavioral health and some other categories do fall under that. So where would a jurisdiction or apply for that? Is that through the Maryland Department of Health?
I think some of this money actually is supposed to pass through to the counties. I don't know, Andrew Garrison is here. I don't know if he has anything to add on that money.
Yeah, no, that's correct. So a lot of this is going to be that the relationship between the settlement and those jurisdictions and putting the funds there. The funds that do stay in the state are in the opioid restitution fund, which has specified uses as well.
If so, it could be either or?
So there's money that comes to the state that the state controls and will use however the health department is choosing to use it. And then, is this money specifically for each county, or is it up?
I don't know the extent to which this represents all, any sort of jurisdictional share that they receive from that, but there should be some that passes through to the jurisdictions as well.
Okay, if there's any additional information that you could pass on, we appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll follow up.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator?
No, he answered a couple of the questions, especially with the local funds that are getting, but it says other funds, stimulus, other federal stimulus funds. And it just says that. Do we have anything specific about that?
We do, and I'll turn it over to Tanya, who has more information.
Thank you.
So if you move ahead to page 7 in the document before you, this begins the pages that summarize kind of the individual item level detail. For the 3 supplementals, I won't go through everything, but obviously if you have any additional specific questions, please let us know. So the first page here is related to supplemental budget number 3. Most of the big items were already discussed, so I'll just point out a couple items. In the violent crime initiative, that encompasses, in addition to the funding for the VOCA, there's $10 million of additional funds for the Office of Attorney General and the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth, and Victim Services in fiscal 2022 and 2023. In addition, there is $5.6 million that'll go through the CADE funding formulas. This was related to one of the jurisdictions had not initially met its maintenance of effort requirement and didn't receive funding in the allocation. They've since met it, and so this provides the additional funding. If you turn to the next page and then kind of continuing on for several additional pages are the items in supplemental budget number 4. The first set of items are related to the kind of PAYGO funding, including the $800 million, but it also provides additional detail on the administration PAYGO items, which include $154.7 million from the infrastructure, federal infrastructure legislation. The next set of items are fiscal 2022 general fund deficiencies, and then a few related special and federal funds that are associated with those. The largest of those is the shortfall in the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services for the salary costs. A couple of these deficiencies also relate to items that are funded in fiscal 2023. So in the Department of Human Services, Social Services Administration, there's across the 2 years, $4.9 million for evidence-based practices related to federal implementation of federal legislation. This is a kind of correcting a fund split issue. There's also $4.1 million across fiscal 2022 and 2023 for Shepherd Pratt Hospital to expand patient care coordination and referral systems. The next set of items are additional general fund items for fiscal 2023. Again, the largest of these were already covered. This continues for several pages, so I'm just going to highlight the areas where DLS has recommendations related to the items. On page 10 is where kind of most of those are. So the fifth item from the top there in the Department of General Services, there's funding across several items to provide additional positions to support the implementation of the critical maintenance facilities renewal increase. It's about $1.7 million in total. In the budgets, as you passed it, you had restricted funding in the Department of General Services to provide that additional support. Because that additional support is provided in the supplemental, we are recommending that you remove that restriction. About halfway down that page, there's funding of about $1 million in the State Library Agency for the maintenance of service at public libraries. There's a later item on the subsequent page related to the resource libraries. And we're recommending on both of those that you make the funding contingent on bills that are moving that would kind of support those increases. The next recommendation is on commerce. There's $1 million for the Downtown Partnership for Baltimore. The budget, as you passed it, had a restriction of $1 million in the tourism board for that purpose, and so we're recommending you strike that restriction because it's funded here in the supplemental. Towards the bottom of that page, on the kind of fourth to last item, There's $500,000 for a contract in MIMS for the Doctor First mobile communication system. Doctors First is a private organization, and this directs them to contract with a specific private company, so we're recommending you delete the funds. So then, kind of moving ahead to page 13, no, I'm sorry, went too far. Is page 12 is where the additional detail on the stimulus funds are. So those largest items are kind of the additional ARPA funds for the school system. There's the next kind of largest item that's not related to that is $68 million in DDA, and that's just recognizing the enhanced federal match for the first 3 quarters of the year. It hadn't been previously recognized in the budget. So that's the largest school system, like school-related stimulus funds. And this provides the additional detail. There's also several items related to the state small business credit initiative as well.
One thing I would note is about 6 items down, there's $38 million for the non-public schools. This is some of the money that was talked about in some of your previous meetings that helps non-public schools cover various operating costs.
Senator?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm just reading the titles. They talk about money for schools and innovative programs. Does anybody know what that means or could find out?
Innovative programs is the program title in which those funds were kind of added.
Yeah, it's one of the program titles in the aid to education budget. It's kind of a catch-all.
That's our label, or that's a federal label?
That's the state's label, and it's a catch-all for a lot of different state programs and federal programs.
Okay, got you, thank you.
Page 13 kind of continues the discussion with just some additional kind of special and federal fund items. The largest is $220 million for school meals. The next largest is $100 million. This is recognizing state reinsurance program fund balance that was authorized to be used in Medicaid in fiscal 2023 in the BRFA last year, and this is just recognizing it in the budget.
Can you go through that a little bit? Is that the money in part for the health disparity?
The provider assessment is also used for that. This was an additional authorization. This was authorized in the BRFA last year, so it primarily funds the state's reinsurance program and the health benefit exchange. But the provider assessment has brought in more money than has been needed to support that. So legislation last year used funding for $200 million across 2022 and 2023 to support Medicaid. There was also funding used to support some of the health disparities, as well as some other items as well.
I guess what I'm wondering is how much is left?
I think we can get information on the exact balance. They haven't. Last year, it appeared that they would need to use funding to support the reinsurance kind of program in the more near term, but we ended up receiving additional funding as related to the American Rescue Plan Act due to changes in the subsidy levels, and so we have not needed it for the reinsurance program. So what's been used has been largely for the things that has been directed through the legislation, but we can get the exact balance.
Okay, thank you. Senator McCray?
Thank you. 2 quick questions. One of them is, could you just go into a little bit, what does it mean by support for DNR in reference to diversity hiring? And I know the issue around the police force, but don't know what the $200,000 do. And then the other one was there was a restriction in reference to signage for African-American cultural spaces. I didn't see that in here, and if you could just highlight what page that is on, if it's in it.
So I'll do the signage, and it's hopefully someone can help answer the DNR question. The signage, both the House and Senate have fenced money in the budget for that. It wasn't in the supplemental, but it is still there to be fenced.
So I'm
gonna need to get back to you on exactly how they plan on using that money, but you still have the restriction of $750,000 until the promotion, diversity and promotion or hiring plan. So that would be still a restriction to kind of make sure, they're putting money towards that. You still have a restriction to make sure there's a reporting requirement so that they can provide information about what they're doing.
If you turn to page 15, begins the discussion or the summary of supplemental budget number 5 that was introduced this morning. The capital-related items were already discussed. The next set of items were the items that largely reflect the items that were fenced in the rainy day fund previously. And that total is about $370 million, as was noted earlier. The next set of items are just some additional general and federal fund spending. Some of these also reflect items that were previously fenced in the rainy day fund, particularly related to childcare and the adult dental. But there are additional items related to the Cancer Research Center grants, the Maryland Tech Council's BioHub Maryland initiative for life science industry talent pipeline. And that provides the kind of overall summary of what was in the items.
Mr. Chairman, I would just add on the items on that page 15, there were items that were fenced that the governor has funded in the supplemental. All that's in the budget is like a word or two, like the name of the thing. So you're likely in conference going to need to add some of the same language you had added when you originally fenced it to, explain more clearly how you want the money to be used.
Very good. Where did we end up on, I know I saw at least 5 million on the 988 system. Is that how we ended up overall with everything?
Yes, 5 million. I think that there's a bill moving that would provide the other 5.
Right. Senator Eckert.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The item on page 16, the disparity grants, is that in addition, or does that just provide equal disparity grants with what was last year?
Right, so for jurisdictions that did not reduce their taxes, it provides them and received less in disparity grant in fiscal 23 than they did in fiscal 22. It brings them back to the 22 level.
Do we have more specific information on that? Can you break that out?
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, but yes, we can get you that
Thank you very
information.
much.
The bulk of it goes to Baltimore City, but there's like 5 other counties that benefit as well.
Correct, thank you. And, those counties don't know yet that that's coming, do they?
I mean, the House had fenced the money for this purpose, and the governor has chosen to fund the House fencing. So they may have noticed that the House had fenced it, but they didn't know for sure they were going to get that money.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's helpful.
Okay. Is that the end of?
Yeah, that was all. I'm just trying to see if I can answer Senator Eckert's question, but that's all we had.
Okay. And these pages in the back?
The pages in the back are the detail of the recommended actions, including the item where we've recommended striking some of the additional language. There was one recommendation on supplemental 5. It relates to 2 items. It's related to that $100 million in BHA. So there's annual language that's kind of attached to those appropriations that makes sure that that money stays kind of within the BHA provider reimbursements, and that language is also included in the back.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'll just answer Senator Eckert's question while I have the numbers here. So Baltimore City gets 11.3 million of the 15.4, which is just level funding them. Caroline County gets almost 700,000. It's 699,508. Cecil County gets 1.4 million. Somerset County gets a little over 800,000, and Wacomico County gets 1.1 million. And that's the list of the counties to benefit.
Any other questions for our DLS friends? Okay, great job, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take a couple-minute break. Come back at 3:30. And we will start with, we'll start with cannabis, I think.
Yeah, if we can, I'm trying to coordinate Smolsky here, so we've got 7:29 we can do, if we have to wait.
Okay, very good. See you in about 10 minutes.
What's our expected time?
Okay, let's do some voting. I think we'll wait until we get Mr. Smolsky over here. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, I think we got some pension bills we can get through. It's on the list. It is on the list.
I think Kim's got a list. She's gonna.
That's exactly right. That's why I keep everything that's important, Senator. No.
Thank you.
I'm here representing my side. I have proxies for you.
And I have a proxy for this, who else can get a lot done? Who's voting over there? There are a lot of us.
All right, are you ready, Philip?
I am ready, yes.
All right, let's roll.
So everything on this list is an exact match cross file, with the exception of the first one, House Bill 379. This bill was about the Marbidco and Clean Energy Center employees being able to be in the state health program. I believe you would want to amend this to conform to the Senate bill as passed by the Senate.
Okay, let's amend to do it. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Excellent.
All right.
Next.
Next is 417. This is, it was a pension bill and administration bill that's dealt with a reemployment earnings exemption for certain employees who went back to MDH and labor working on COVID response. It's a limited time window. It's an exact match to what you passed, Senate Bill 402.
So moved. All those in favor? Opposed? Next.
Next is House Bill 447. This is an exact match cross file to Senate Bill 797.
My bill, so
This is the
moved.
cash campaign.
All those in favor? Opposed? Next.
Senate Bill 542 is an exact match cross file to Senate Bill 954. This is a bill that would require a disparity study for the use of investment and brokerage
All those
services.
in favor? Whoa.
We amended the Senate bill per the good senator from Prince George's recommendation. Does this bill?
Yes, this matches the Senate bill.
So they took our amendment?
That went into Senate Bill 9.
Okay. Not needed here.
Correct.
Okay, then so moved.
All those in favor? Opposed? Next.
House Bill 742, this was a exact match cross file to Senate Bill 409. It's Joint Committee on Pensions Bill
All those
extending
in
the
favor?
COVID death benefit.
Opposed?
House Bill 743 is another Joint Committee on Pensions Bill, exact match cross file.
All those in favor? Opposed?
And the last one, House Bill 1091, it's an exact match cross file.
All those in
to
favor?
Senate Bill 739.
Opposed? What's this, why is 577 written on the top of mine?
Oh, that's a mistake.
Okay.
That's my correction.
Okay.
These are all.
That's all.
We got, do we have 729?
I've got 729, yep.
Okay.
That is the Baltimore City use of highway user revenue funds for traffic functions and enforcement. Baltimore City is allowed to use their highway user revenue distribution for carrying out traffic functions under current law. It's currently required to be conducted by its police department, but I believe their Department of Transportation actually does some of the work, and it causes some inter-budgetary transfers that basically just takes out the requirement to run it through the police department and just allows it to be used for traffic functions and
It's the
enforcement.
exact match to the House bill.
Yeah.
Senator Edwards, you like this bill?
You say so.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
729.
729.
Senate Bill 729, yeah. And I guess we can do the cross file if we
So
haven't
moved.
already.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Jim, that was House Bill 1362.
As long as Senator Edwards likes it, I'm good with it.
Well, I don't have any 3% increase in it. You'll make Roxanne Prettyman happy too. She's the new delegate. This is our first session and our last session. So this is our first bill she'll be.
Oh, how about that? Okay, very good. Yeah. Yes, what do you got for us, Erica?
So I have a bill that you guys are secondary on. He just voted it. It's House Bill 511. It is a cross-file to Senate bill. This is the one that deals with the establishing the Institute of Public Leadership at College Park. What the House did that he agreed to is, has to do with the formulas for the community colleges and Selinger, et cetera. They piggyback on the public four-year funding, and because this bill is adding funding to College Park, it would have, that increase would have caused an increase for the other ones. I don't think that was the intent, so the House said that this, the money that's going to this Institute of Public Leadership would not be included for purposes of the formulas. So it reduces the cost of the bill to just 1.5 instead of, I think it was 1.8 or something.
Right. Is this, is this the House bill or the Senate bill?
This is the House bill.
Okay, and the Senate bill, they already changed over there?
I'll have to check and see.
Yep. All right. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
511.
Yes. Was that? Right, no, right. I will trust,
Oh, I'm ashamed. Yeah, we got a letter.
It's all about it's all about accountability around here. No, nobody gets a free ride.
Just so you know, sometimes handwritten notes work too.
What else we got? Okay, how about some of these bills we heard today? Should we handle these?
I know I need to look at mine, so.
What about 335, that Easy Pass bill? Everybody like that?
Move favorable.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Pass House Bill 723. Cross-file to Senate Bill 4.
Where are we? 723? 723. Yeah, sponsor problem. Comes late to meetings, I don't know.
Move favorable.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Wait, well,
723.
okay, so we're not, okay, got it.
All right, we got, how about that 1186? Can we get this, we need to clean that up?
Yeah, I mean, I need to, if I could, look at
You need to
everything
work
that
on that,
was
okay,
heard
very
today.
good. How about, okay, on Shady Grove, we gotta cut that down to 1 year of $5 million in '24.
Yeah, okay.
Second.
Shady Grove, the
University's at
14,
46.
is that too, Erica, you not ready for that?
No,
Huh?
nothing that we heard today, am I ready for?
Okay, let's not do it then. Okay? Okay, then we don't do any of that.
Never mind.
What's that? Well, I don't want to get the stink eye anymore. 7, where's that? On this sheet?
It's on the, yes.
Yeah, no, Erica has just said that we need to wait on this sheet. They need time to catch up. Fair enough.
You're not worried about spending money, we can do tax credit.
What's that?
You're worried about spending money on?
On what?
Endowments for Maryland. Tax credit for endowments.
That's fine. But,
Hold on.
but I don't wanna, hold on one second. I don't do it. Anything else there? I mean, you're talking about your place.
Yeah, I know, possible.
Yeah. We'll wait. All right, who had questions? Senator Griffin.
Mr. Chairman, I had it backwards on the House Bill 723. My Senate Bill 461 passed clean out of here. The House amended the cross-file 723. So if we're to put them both in the Senate posture, I would vote to remove the amendments off 723.
All right, well, we've already kind of decided we're gonna pull back on this list from today.
Okay.
And everything we heard today, we're gonna let staff catch up.
Okay.
'Cause I was rushing the
makes
gun. I was
sense.
rushing the gun.
Right there with you, right
I
there.
was rushing it. My fault. Right, Senator Jackson.
Hearings today, but I was on the voting list today, Senate Bill 443. I just need to know if I need to take the tunnel or walk across the Lawyer's Mall.
What is, I don't even know what it is.
That's the income tax on the pet-friendly.
We haven't done it yet.
Okay, all right.
We do have a way to get ourselves in the right place on parks. Big park bill. What do you got, Senator?
Thank you. I didn't bring it up during the supplemental, but I do want to thank the governor's office and the department. They forward funded a lot of the positions the park bill has, so they're going to get a good head start in critical maintenance on land acquisition, all that. The House right now, or in 10 minutes, is taking up the Senate bill on third reader. They've amended it in 4 ways. I have the amendments. We can print them. I can just kind of verbally. Matt, I think they were sent to you a little bit ago.
Yeah, we've got them. They're not terribly complicated.
No.
If you, I think Dylan sent a
Yeah.
quick summary here, and it's four points. Do you want me to?
By all means.
Okay. So they allow additional funding above the 70 million. If you remember, there was 70 million go into the capital improvements and acquisition fund. This would allow money that's above that 70 million to be used for park accessibility, basically ADA projects within the parks. So anything that comes in above that 70 can be used for that. There's a technical amendment that the Attorney General's office wanted to make sure that those AG positions that were added within the there were new AG positions added in the Department of Natural Resources. Those are going to be Attorney General positions and not Natural Resources positions. There is an increase in annual funding for the Mel Nolan Park from $50,000 to $1 million.
Sorry, Matt, it's not a park. That is the program, the forestry program to keep our forests healthy. It's currently funded every year at $50,000 a year, and so this would increase it.
Sorry. Thank you. And there's an establishment of the Port Deposit State Historical Park in partnership, and it requires a transfer of land to DNR for the establishment of that park.
And I believe the Port of Deposit State Historical Park, that's the former Tome School. Yeah. So part of the, if you recall, part of the park bill's goals is to increase not just any parkland, but parkland of significant historic value, particularly for Black Marylanders, and we believe that this will meet that goal as well.
We have those amendments, not in reprint form, but amendment form if you want to see them, but that is the substance of those amendments.
So I'd like to just go ahead and get your approval on that, so when the bill comes back over, we can just concur and be done with it.
Move favorable.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I think all we got is Smolsky.
Let me go see if I can find Smolsky. cards and they sunset it after 5 years. It operates just like the film tax credit, but this is for plays and musicals. It is House Bill 641. No,
we already voted my bill, so it's actually, it's a downgrade from my bill.
Are we okay with the downgrade?
You know, sometimes.
Sometimes you gotta take a little bit
Sometimes you take what you can get.
A little favorable.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's pre-vote that whenever we get however they, well, maybe if they've got mine, right?
We haven't said theirs yet. You want to put on a report?
Okay, whoops. Sure, let's do that. So we're gonna amend mine to this, to what we just did, and then we'll send that out to the floor too.
Great.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, very good. Once again, we're honored with the great presence. The great Smolsky.
597 and House Bill 641. 597's with amendments, House Bill 641's favorable.
All right, we've got a new reprint on our desk, which actual page numbers that go in the same direction, all in the normal numeric framework. Yeah.
You're getting tired, guy.
Yeah. All right. I don't know where we kind of left it all over the place. I'm most concerned about the money, obviously. And I guess the best thing we've got so far is Matt Jackson's email that outlines what's going on. I guess, let me just ask once again and see if there's any new information on this. We had, prior to session, in discussions with the other committee, talked about a framework of how the money was going to be spent as money actually came in. Is there an indirect or direct relationship with the money that is designated in this bill, that it ends up being covered in the future? Are they mandates for the future, or is just this 1 year?
This is, as I understand the funds that are in the bill, the first one, the Business Assistance Fund, is subject to the budget, and funds for that will come from the budget and any other money. So it leaves it open for other possibilities for funds to go into
Okay.
the,
All right, so we got flexibility there.
flexibility there. The other two funds.
No mandate.
One of the revenue sources for the other two funds are anticipated revenues from the Health Advisory Fund and the Community Infrastructure Fund. The revenues, one of the sources of funds for those funds will be revenues from taxed sale of cannabis when that time comes. And they also have that general flexibility, any other money, so. And I believe the health fund also has an authorization to receive money from the budget too, but not the community reinvestment fund. That revenue source, the sources for that fund would strictly be revenues from taxed cannabis establishments and licensing fees from dual licensed entities. Presumably, a dual licensed entity would be somebody who has a license under medical cannabis would also get possibly get a license to be a adult use cannabis establishment.
But that's really not established yet.
None of that is written in stone or established.
Senator Alford.
Mr. Chair, Just going off of that, Dave, so what is kind of to be determined or left if we were to pass this bill and the constitutional amendment bill? What's kind of still to do next session in terms of the details?
Probably the most controversial and most complicated part is still left to do. If you want to call it the low-hanging fruit, some of the low-hanging fruit was the changes in the criminal law article. But the most complicated piece is going to be the licensing scheme and how that's going to be regulated. That by far will be the most complicated, and you could probably spend all next session, depending on when there's a bill introduced, talking about that.
Okay, and in terms of funding for the regulatory structure we're gonna have to set up, if we move the policy next session, but it's not gonna be funded until July of '23, is there gonna be a gap in implementation?
Well, depends on how long it takes, once you establish a structure, how long it takes for revenues to come in. Currently, you'll probably need some seed money to start the regulation of the industry, and you'll need probably some seed money because there won't be sufficient revenues coming in to do the whole licensing process and that. So there might be some seed money required, but you'll certainly have the flexibility next year to provide for that. So I don't know, it might be in the fiscal note how much that is anticipated to be, but certainly the revenues will be coming in eventually. They're not going to be there right away.
Right.
The intent would be ultimately to have the revenues, however, or licensing fees cover the cost of regulation, which is the case in the cannabis, for medical cannabis.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Wow. There you go. We got a taker.
I was, should have probably said this, which is what I was forgetting. I was going to offer a floor amendment, just wanted to make sure that I let everybody know. In reference to the part that I discussed earlier about the shall prioritize, I talked with the House about the category of individuals who have been convicted of a violation of criminalizing cannabis. So these are folks that have been impacted in some capacity with our justice system, that other states have led with them being prioritized in reference to making sure that they can participate or have some ability. We have this grant program, wanted to get clarity. House said that that was also their intent, so I will be offering this on the floor. I don't want to slow it up during the committee because then finance will have to vote again and things of that nature, but we'll offer it up on the floor. Just wanted to make sure you all were aware.
Most likely would be a friendly amendment, I would imagine.
It's always good to be friendly. Anything else? All right, move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, raise your hand. This is on. I was like, what are you doing? That's what I was like, that's a little. It's just three, yeah, with Quarterman absent.
Yeah, I guess you're also second on the House bill also, and
Okay.
that is
Same
also.
situation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same three.
Okay.
What's the House bill number?
The House bill is 837.
And we're not on the referendum.
No, the referendum is in finance. And the
Look at that.
bills are identical, so.
I promised 5 o'clock. I don't know.
Explain my vote.
You want to explain your vote?
I do.
Okay, you can
I
explain your
do,
vote.
and I
As
just
long as it
want,
doesn't take 50 minutes.
well, I'm gonna talk real slow.
Okay.
There may be some music involved.
Okay.
No, Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank finance staff. I had the opportunity during the break to talk with some of our colleagues on the Finance Committee, Senators Hayes and Augustine in particular. Some of the questions we were raising during our early morning work session, they were able to answer, respond to, and address. And then I talked with my colleague who has the friendly amendment forthcoming. So I I still do not love this, but I feel much better about it having had those conversations, and so that's my explanation of my vote.
Very good. Anybody else? All right. Take the rest. Are you asking? Yes. Senator Jackson.
Yeah, I am certainly a person who has begun to see the light of my ways and don't want to be involved in, not being in, getting in the way of the future. So, again, I think I mentioned earlier today, the public safety community has been preparing for this because ever since Washington State and Colorado. And so I think that has helped me make the turn regarding recreation, no marijuana. I know the young folks in my family will be happy about that, but I just think that as long as we remain diligent about how we're doing this and ensuring that this is a business opportunity and not just a recreational opportunity, that I think as we do our due diligence, I think we'll be fine. So, it's my
Very good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to explain my vote.
Everybody's chatty all of a sudden.
We are very chatty. I think the thing that made me turn the corner on this is that it sure seems to me, in talking to even people my age, that a lot of the people who would be using it are already using it in one way or another. And I don't see, there may be some in the younger generation, some abuse of it, but I don't see it anywhere else yet. So I'm ready to move into the next generation with this.
Very good. All right. So tomorrow, we are going to try to keep things a little flexible, as if we don't
Unlike
already.
today.
As we always do. But we are in pretty darn good shape. We have no more bill hearings. We have most of the stuff we want pushed out the door. And we will probably have conference tomorrow on the budget.
When do we have to be here in the morning?
There is, what time's session? 10? I mean, 10? 10 o'clock is fine. We won't have any committee activity before 10.
Before session, okay.
Unless, like last night, in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I think, we better do this.
Yeah.
But no, I'm gonna try not to do anything tomorrow morning. I'm gonna try to pretty much do nothing committee-wise except for getting the conference done tomorrow.
We have a committee
Unless-
dinner tomorrow night.
Unless we have to. We do have a committee dinner tomorrow night. So we'll see how things go. We may not have 2 floor shows. Maybe we will. We'll see.
In terms of Friday and sort of rest of the bills we have, and what's we'll ask about the bills.
Yeah.
How many bills we get?
There are very few that I know of that are Senate bills that I'm getting a lot of interest in. I have a couple that are hanging out there, but we'll keep taking them up. We got a lot of House bills that we'll get around to, but I feel like we're in pretty good shape.
I was just asking whether we're likely to do that on Friday. That was my question.
I don't know.
Okay.
Don't know. All right.
Yep.
Thank you all very much. Great job today.